I would like to introduce our session moderator, Pardees Safizadeh, who is founder and CEO of Alvalu and is going to rock this session. I am handing it over to you, Pardees, so you could share something about yourself and your favorite piece of technology and whatever the tip you would like to give to the audience at the top of your mind.
Sure. Hey, everybody. I may know some of you, and I'm glad to meet more of you. As Yulia said, my name is Pardees. I'm the CEO of Alvalu, which is a new marketing agency just for startup companies where we do coaching, consulting, or we act as an extended team for your digital marketing. And we were only 9 months old now, so we're still working our way and getting in here. Very happy to be here. And my favorite technology is Slack because I can talk to anyone and share anything at any time. And it's really great for asynchronous communication. I have my clients on there, I have my team on there. It's great. And my favorite tip is telling the story of like who you are and finding the right customers, partners, and employees who resonate with it. And I really believe that anyone can find their own niche and they can find their own audience if they just talk about who they are and what they bring to the table. That's me. Let's move over to Lisa. Lisa, introduce yourself.
Awesome, thanks. So my name is Lisa Genovese. I'm based in Calgary, Canada, and I'm the president at Bottom Line. We're a market research, strategic planning, and digital marketing firm. My favorite piece of technology is Wrike. Wrike is an industry-specific project management software. Oh my God, it makes our lives so much easier from resource planning to assigning tasks. I just love it. Tip for the audience, when you're ready to give up, it's usually the time you're just about to go through a breakthrough. Keep going. You'll be super glad that you stuck with it. And I can say through my career, oh man, anytime I feel like I'm on the edge of the cliff and about to fall off, if I just keep going, it usually means, you know, we soar. So that's my tip of the day.
Awesome. Moving on. Yulia, we have next Matthew. Or you go by Matt, maybe.
I go by either. I go by either. I think it's time for a new headshot, though. Happy to be here. So I'm the founder and managing director of Maverick Agency, and we are a brand marketing agency in Canada. I started Maverick 13 years ago, and you know, I would say that we've been running fast with it ever since. And we've had the privilege of working with all kinds of brands over the years, including some really interesting ones, to say the least. But ultimately, our focus is really on end consumer brands and consumer product type brands. And I feel like I said the word brand quite a bit, but really that's what we live and breathe. Our favorite piece of tech right now that we're experimenting with is the implementation of augmented reality into the user experience and into the customer experience. It's a relatively new thing for us, but you know, we see tremendous potential for it now and in the future as the technology continues to evolve. I find personally it's quite an interesting sort of intersection between design and development, or like form and function. But I think it's something that's going to become quite a bit more pervasive in our lives now and in the future. Tip for the audience. So I was maybe a bit hasty when I put this together. Stay hungry, don't get comfortable. This pertains as much to business as it does to marketing, I believe. And you know, we see this at times in what we do. You know, it's never a good thing to get comfortable with what you're doing or who you're doing it for. And then equally on client side for us, unfortunately, it's something we see all the time. You know, oftentimes in new sort of conversations, it's, hey, you know, our marketing or our strategy or our brand we feel is complacent, or our agency is complacent. Let's talk. So that's my tip.
Woohoo! Thanks. Heather?
Hi, I'm Heather. I'm from Results Marketing and Advertising. So we're a small boutique agency in Atlantic Canada. That's a fancy way of saying we're from a small place, so we have to be small. So that's who we are, and we pride ourselves, I think, on being part of the client's marketing team. So that's how we would view ourselves. If someone's looking at it as a service provider, we haven't done our job very well. So we like to be an extension of someone's marketing team, whether they're a large or small firm, and we hope that people come to realize that pretty quickly. So we have a range from national clients to small hair salon down the street. So we have a fair mix, and that I think speaks to the sort of the area we're in and the nature of the marketplace. So for me, I took the software that I would recommend more from, as opposed to internally looking out. If I was advising one of our small clients, even larger ones, I would say, and I got to give props to a Canadian company here, and that would be Shopify. So if anyone needs a commerce platform that allows people to set up an online store, they even do POS as well. They started over 10 years ago in Canada. They are now, sorry, my Siri came on there. They are now Canada's largest company as of this year. And that probably makes a lot of people's eyes blink, but they are. COVID probably certainly accelerated that. Very cost effective and scalable. So I kind of took more the client perspective. If someone was looking for a solution like that and they were selling goods and service or goods online, I would probably recommend that as one of my favorites, because I think the technology we recommend depends on the need of the client. For a quick tip, sounds probably kind of funny on my screen, but be a Scorpio, and somebody in the previous session spoke about that. It may not seem at first glance that Scorpios have empathy, but they are usually the most watchful people in the room. They're usually the most watchful people in the room. They can read a crowd well. They figure out really quickly who needs sort of the TLC, what's the right thing to do, who needs a kick in the pants, that sort of thing. So from a customer perspective, regardless of the technology that you think you might need or can imagine, having empathy is critical in terms of serving your customers and clients well. And, I don't want to get sort of too far down the corporate track, but a lot of companies these days are putting in what they call CXOs in their C-suite management team. And that's really all about customer experience. And at the end of the day, if you can't put yourself in your customer's shoes and walk their path, I don't think you'll do well regardless of what technology you have from a marketing perspective. So that's what I would say is have empathy.
Awesome. And to wrap it up, Caleb.
Well, thanks. Thanks for having me. So I'm the co-founder and chief revenue officer at Hook and Ladder Digital. We're a digital marketing agency that specializes in social media marketing, organic, as well as the development and optimization of conversion funnels and lead generation funnels. I would have to echo what Heather said a lot. We like to lead with empathy and then reverse engineer the infrastructure of our campaigns based on, the customer segments, why they buy, what compels them to take action, and then we leverage that data to be the DNA for how we develop the infrastructure for our campaigns and programs. My favorite piece of technology is funny. I was thinking about this some more, and I have a 2.5-year-old right now. So my favorite piece of technology is my iPad or her iPad, just for cartoons and this thing. But in all seriousness, right now we leverage Unbounce and Active Campaign a lot. Unbounce is just great from a custom landing page design perspective. Great split test capabilities, very user friendly, very intuitive. And then Active Campaign is just great for the infrastructure of our funnels. It'll be, email automation, connecting to landing pages and content distribution. So check those out. My tip is that 2 of our core values are clarity through action and extreme ownership. And I think when you adopt these things, you are in a position where you have full control over any situation that you're in, right? Clarity through action is the idea of you have no idea what to do, just do something and then take a look up and see where you are, reassess from there. And extreme ownership is all about, that internal locus of control. Nothing can happen to you. Everything happens the way you define it, even in the micro moments. So have control over what you do and make it work for you.
Awesome. Thanks. And everybody who is attending, feel free to write down the name of your startup and how many years you've been working on it and whether or not you've been doing marketing yet. And so you can kind of know what the audience is like as well. And while you're doing that, if no one does that, I'll be very mad at all of you. And I do know some of you personally, so you'll be hearing from me later. So make sure you do it. So, all right, let's get on. I have a few questions that I can kick us off with, and the panelists have graciously said that they will answer them. So let's see how this goes. So the first question is, how should a startup map their customer journey? And Caleb, if you want to go first, since you went last time, feel free to jump right in.
Yeah, I think first starting with most businesses say they know their customer, and I don't think they know them fully, right? They know some of the demographic traits from a surface level, but understanding them from a psychographic levels is critical. And then using that data to, again, reverse engineer the journey that you want to take new potential customers through. I think one of the biggest challenges businesses face is that they have a really solid understanding for their customers, but they try to get brand new customers that are totally different than those people. I would say that do small sample size tests of what resonates with your customer, what gets them to convert, and then take the data and the logic from that and use that as the building blocks for your going forward amplified marketing strategies. So don't reverse, don't fix it if it isn't broken. Figure out what a small sample size is doing. Use that and use that to create the customer journey going forward.
Pardees, are you going to call on us, or do you want us to just jump in?
You can just jump in, Lisa. I know you're good at that.
I'm talking. Yes, I am very good at that. So in answer to the question about how do you build your customer journey, I love what you said, Caleb, on those are the things that you have to understand in order to build it. But, kind of the nuts and bolts of how you do it, a lot of people make it more complex than it needs to be. I personally love doing it on a whiteboard or a piece of paper, and just how are they finding you would be step one. What's the next, do they reach out by phone, by email? What does that look like? And so kind of actually mapping out that journey. There's lots of tools, tech tools that you can use to make that journey pretty. I mean, Google.io is a nice little easy free tool if you want to build out a nice looking flow chart from your piece of paper. But I would encourage just keep it simple and map it out, like I say, whiteboard piece of paper to start, and then you can kind of put it into a larger diagram. When we do it for our clients, often once it's in that visual format, a lot of our clients will actually print those off or have them printed and laminated, and they put them on the wall in their office, or they use it for training, like onboarding staff, so that the team can understand what that journey looks like. The other beauty, though, of building up the customer journey is that you can see where there are discrepancies. It's really easy at a first glance to go, oh, that could be a major bottleneck for our customers. And based on what Caleb was saying with psychographic profiling, is if you are having some conversations with your end client, maybe you're going to whip that customer journey out and say, hey, how does this process feel for you? Do you have some questions on, what, or share some feedback on what's not working for you? And you can make some adjustments. So anyway, that's what I have to say on that topic.
Yeah, and I could maybe just add on that as well. So Caleb's 100% right. First and foremost, have a very clear idea or a clear definition of who your customers are. And then to add on what Lisa just said, stop thinking about it as a linear sort of journey, because it isn't. And, more often than not, it resembles more of a web or a cloud than a linear sort of progression.
I would agree with pretty much everything that's been said, and especially what Lisa touched on in terms of, Google Journey Map, and you'll get 20, 50, 100 different versions, and they'll be full of like infographics and illustrations and diagrams, and they're a bit daunting. But at the end of the day, keep in mind, all you're trying to figure out is the journey that you and your customer go on, your employees, you and your customer go on from sort of start to finish, and hopefully repeat. And that doesn't have to be, something beautiful that we buy offline and fill in a bunch of boxes and try and fit into them. I say the first thing is we encourage our clients to do is go to the other side of the table, put your customer's shoes on, and come in all the doors that they would come in on their journey to get to you. And I think in doing that, you have to nail down, and Caleb talked about this, nail down that buyer persona, and not just their demographics, and their persona changes through that cycle. So at one stage, the buyer might be somebody who's researching different options that are available. But then at another stage in that same buyer's journey or customer's journey, they may be seeking reassurance that they have all the necessary information just before they, press buy on a website or walk in a door. So the personas change as they go through that experience. And don't forget that when you're mapping out the touch points and all the entry points, that they're not all online. So keep in mind that there's some, other steps that they may take, whether it be bricks and mortar or whatever it happens to be. And identify as you walk through in their shoes, where are the roadblocks, and what are the things that would annoy you through the process, and fix them. So that would be my.
I want to build on something that's been said is, and I could see actually in the chat, Caleb, where you're talking about, take any action that you want them to take, and customer lifetime value or repeat purchases, and you're highlighting something really, really key. That the customer journey does not end at purchase. It costs 30% less to keep a current customer than it does to acquire a new one, which means if you are not thinking about how you make a current customer aware of a new problem that they have, you're leaving 30% of that revenue on the table or more. And so really start to think about how it can be cyclical in nature instead of just awareness through to purchase and then it ending and kind of being a big mic drop there. I often too, when I'm mapping out a customer journey, find it's valuable to look at the different stages in the buying cycle. So even if you slim those stages down to even 4 of awareness, consideration, comparison, and purchase, it'll make it easier for you to think through what are all the things that make my customer aware I exist or where my solution is relevant. What are the things that, in the consideration phase that they should be thinking about, and what are some, it might even help you from a marketing perspective of what are some things that I could do to help them consider the problem that they have. And I won't go through all the stages, but that gives you at least the gist that don't let it end at purchase. It's a big, big mistake made.
Awesome. And we have another great question in the chat from Rita. And she says, what kind of marketing activities should a pre-revenue B2B company do?
Yeah,
Anyone want to jump in?
Through one idea in there. It's one we've been leveraging a lot, and it's gamifying your research in one way or another. So if you're pre-revenue, obviously you still need to get some things in order before you're ready to scale and amplify. And so putting some survey-based sort of quick quizzes out there, it's fun because it gets people's endorphins going from a gamification standpoint, but also you're going to get some meaningful responses back. If you use that data to help you on your scale curve, it can be pretty impactful in that regard.
Anyone else want to jump in here?
I'm just thinking I need to know more about the business before I can really say, yeah, you should do X. I love what you've said, Caleb, and that's a really, really good suggestion. I'd be kind of chucking spaghetti at the wall and hoping it sticked if I threw out anything in addition without knowing more, to be really candid.
I think just to build on what Caleb said, it's just use your research to get some early hooks out there.
Nice. I would also say rely on your blog a little bit and talk to some people and see what actually resonates too. Better questions. Cool. All right. Rita, feel free to add more to the chat if you want more specific answers, and maybe we can help you out some more. We also have another question from the audience about talking more about the customer journey not being linear. We probably know it's like a web, it's a cloud. What are ways of like keeping everything under control, or like getting people from point A to point B, maybe they get to point E before they get to point C, and like how do we actually get them going and doing the things we want them to do when they want to do whatever they want?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I could just take a quick stab at that first. I think it's really just looking at the interconnectedness of everything and how you can try to compel a user through that journey, whatever that progression is. I mentioned, more often than not, it's not linear. So just, taking a really critical view of every single touch point in that journey, in that experience.
I just want to add one thing. Heather, go ahead. You're right. You were
No,
ready.
I was just going to say there are, and I don't want to jump ahead, but there are some platforms out there that if you're just analyzing the online side of stuff, that can map where your traffic's coming from, and right down to the detail of, where do you lose them, where are the roadblocks. There are some platforms out there that can do that, but you want to. I'm a little hesitant to recommend technology without knowing anyone's business or what their need are relative, the spend versus ROI on it.
I think for the most part, it's not totally linear, but as it relates to technology, you should be looking at technology to serve as some of the integral parts of the infrastructure of your, for lack of a better term, funnel or marketing system, because the role of marketing is just to subtly and sequentially nurture folks through a predefined infrastructure. And they're going to go at their own pace. And where we mess it up a lot is when we try to force them through that journey faster than they're ready to go through. You just think about building the infrastructure such that it will allow for that smooth and subtle flow, and then really get good at your top of funnel targeting. Then just kind of sit back and watch it happen and optimize and tweak along the way, leverage different technologies as needed.
I agree with a lot of what's been said. I think the only thing I would add is that it will, as your business matures, so will your customer journey. It will morph and it will change. And I think that level of sophistication on knowing what's kind of like too quick, what's too slow, and to your point, Caleb, about we can't force them through this funnel or this web. It kind of needs to be a natural progression. That you're going to get more information, I guess, as your business matures too, is the point I wanted to make there.
True. Hopefully everyone's businesses will mature. Good luck, everybody, on your startups. All right, we've gotten through one question and it's at 3:26, so we're going to go to another one now. Number 2, when does technology come into the conversation for marketing? How should a startup evaluate their tools?
I might jump in first on this one. Start by saying the days of simple media buys are gone when you get into marketing and advertising. Whether you're dealing with, and I recognize we have some startups in the room, like people are throwing digital marketing, SEO, SEM, paid, owned, earned, social, and everything at you. Even your PR is integrated. So, we shouldn't think of one thing without the others, I guess, but we've reached a point where things are constantly being reshaped, new ideas, concepts, we can't keep up. So I say at the point where you're feeling exceedingly overwhelmed and confused, that's when you need to bring technology into your equation. You just can't keep up, and technology won't solve all your problems and won't keep you up, but it'll be a start. So at the end of the day, I said that's to me when you bring technology into the equation, not to solve your problems, but to help with that overwhelming, disorganized feeling you have when you're trying to figure it all out on your own.
Interesting, and I'm gonna maybe come from a bit of a different perspective. Not that I disagree with you, Heather, but I
disagree.
Well, you want us to duke it out, do you, Pardees?
Yeah.
She's a boxer.
Okay, I am not going to box with you. Let me be clear. But I come at it from a different angle in that although technology has a place to help kind of streamline things, so if things are feeling busy and chaotic, automation can help ease that. I often see a lot of startups making a mistake though of pulling the technology lever first when they haven't really figured out what it is that they're building yet. And so the point I want to make is maybe don't mistake still figuring things out with the chaos or the busyness that Heather's talking about. Because if you haven't really taken the time yet to figure out, okay, what are we building? What are defining, clear goals? What are almost like gap analysis piece. It's going to be really challenging to pick tech vehicles that are going to help you. Instead, it's just going to add another layer of complexity, and you'll actually flounder even more. And so I think technology certainly has a place, but for me, it comes in when it's become very clear what it is we're building, where we're trying to go, what are the steps that it's going to take to actually get there, and then looking at how does tech just streamline some of those steps or make it easier along the way, versus right up front going, oh, we need to use, and I'm making this up, Shopify, or we need to use Slack, without even knowing what's that end goal first. Because you might be pulling out a Ferrari when you really only needed a Toyota Corolla. So that's my 2 cents there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And that technology, we have to remember technology is just an amplifier of something that is already good, right? And so you get 8 of your best customers, put them in a room, grab a Sharpie, or not a Sharpie, grab a whiteboard marker, go on the whiteboard. And if that resonates and that works, then amplify it using technology. But you know, when it comes to automation, you're either paying, well, in marketing, you're either paying for people or systems and processes. And I think that you use people up into the point where that tipping happens, where the cost efficiency and its fulfillment of a business case is no longer there. And so that's when you start to replicate or take over the human side of it, as long as the quality of the output, that 8 people in the boardroom with the whiteboard, is not compromised. If that makes sense.
Anyone else want to jump in, or do you want to go into the chat?
I'm just going to say there's a really good one in the chat that just came up. Follow-up question for Caleb.
All right, let's go to that. Rita, an awesome audience member who likes to chat with us, has another question. So she says, Caleb, do you mean surveying potential customers and building an ideal customer profile? How can we better gamify the surveys, considering the response rate is usually very low?
Yeah, it's definitely thanks for the question. It's definitely meant to strengthen your understanding of the target audience and what their ideal after transformation is, because that's really what we're selling, right? But how do we gamify it? I like to say that smaller, quicker, funner, like quick hit games are more impactful, because nobody wants to sit down and play a game of Settlers of Catan on a Friday night. They want to play a quick game of Skippo. So as it relates to I don't know why Skippo, but as it relates to gamifying, yeah, surveys, but maybe like a 3-question survey followed by you know, an award or something based on their answers. So quick bites to get small sample sizes of information to better illustrate your overall persona, rather than trying to get everything accomplished with one multi-page survey. Does that make sense?
I just like a comment there, sort of in parting on this question, is that, you know, there are lots of tools that I think can be customized and integrate easily with some other things that you're using when it comes to marketing automation. But at the end of the day, ROI has to be the driver on your decisions, because you'll never get on top of everything that's out there, and nor will you need everything. So I think at the end of the day, no matter what you're evaluating, what's your biggest area of need? And is there a particular automation that will help there and make sense in terms of ROI?
I like it. So you guys, would you say start with one automation and see how it goes, or should we do all automations at once? Or does it depend? You can be in the middle ground too.
I don't even know what all automations would include. There's the
like maybe you start with 5 versus 1.
I think you start with what you need.
Yeah.
What your greatest area.
It depends on the situation. Yeah.
It's not a perfect science, as Heather and Lisa said, in terms of strict rule, but obviously, as long as you can have the control in the experiment established, and you're not getting confused between the data between, you know, one automation technology versus another, like just do one thing at a time, go for depth instead of breadth at the beginning, and then have the little pieces create your overall tech stack over time. But it has to fulfill a functional need that is no longer efficient from a human perspective. You can't let the robots take over, like the humans. The humans win, right?
You're highlighting something really key though, Caleb. And I feel, I sound like a naysayer of tech. I absolutely love tech, but I think it has to have serve a specific purpose. Otherwise, you're just doing it for doing its sake. And one of the things that I get quite frustrated about is seeing a lot of marketers who split test till the cows come home. And split testing has its place, but if you have like a $200 a month Facebook ads budget, you can't afford to do a proper split test on 5 different images and 3 different headlines. And so, you know, that's my other beef when we look at, you know, tech and there being so many things, is it needs to serve a specific purpose and really be on point. And to the question of, well, how should you do it all at once? Should you do one at a time? Well, it's an it depends answer, because if it's a tech integration between, okay, they opt in for this particular white paper on a landing page, and then it triggers, you know, a 3-part email sequence. Well, if you only did the first integration and then they aren't getting the email sequence because you decide to take it one step at a time, that's going to be a major problem in your funnel. But on the flip side of that, if you try to do too many things at once, it's going to become a nightmare, because there's just too many variables and too many moving parts. So it's kind of just enough to solve the purpose versus too little or too much, in my view.
Nice. Does anyone else want to jump in on this question before we move on? Looks like we're good. Audience members, are you guys good? If you're awake, just type yes into the chat, so I know at least you're awake, since there's no questions here.
I hope they're not asleep.
Thanks, Yulia. Yulia's awake. Good job. I hope this is interesting, because I'm interested. All right, there we go. Oh yeah, what's up, Abby? Nice to see you. I love seeing people I know here. Okay, next question. Let's talk about economies of scale for media companies and platforms for advertising. What should we do? You know, we just mentioned like the $200 a month on an ad budget. Should we start there? Is it better to spend like $3,000 at once? What's your take?
That's an it depends answer. Really is an it depends answer. And this is one I get asked on a very regular basis. And my answer to it is always this: the data and the research never lies. And so if you want to look at building out a model to scale, you really need to go back and look at the overarching strategy and the overarching plan, and that needs to be fueled by some market research. So you can't just pick out of the sky that, oh, suddenly my budget is, I don't know, $500 a month, and I'm going to throw it into Instagram ads, without even verifying first that your customer is hanging out on Instagram, what message is going to resonate with them, you know, so on and so forth. And then when it comes to budget forecasting with ads, you need to look at what size of geographical area, what is my cost per click going to be, or CPM going to be, you know, so on and so forth. There are so many different variables. And I'm sure, Caleb, with your social background, you can probably give a much better answer around the what should the budget be, but mine is very much an it depends.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'll just have one point here and then I'll get off. But you know, if your ads, for example, are not, as long as you're approaching it with a programmatic sort of strategy, but if your ads aren't converting or leading people to the right action you want them to take, even on $100 and 1,000 impressions, it's not automatic. It's not magically going to convert at $10,000 and 8 billion impressions. So, like, you know, we have some clients who spend $50,000 a month on campaigns, but we always start them with $100 and 1,000 impressions. That's our rule, and figure out what is, and then amplify what is proven versus. So yeah, don't fall into the trap of saying you gotta. Now, don't take that $100, as Lisa mentioned, I think earlier. Don't take that $100 and build an ETF out of it. You know, like, just do one thing with that. Go for depth and breadth. Not don't dilute yourself.
I'm going to just take a slightly different tack on the question. I'm going to say, if you're selling consumer goods, for example, you know, to the masses, and you're just getting started, and whether your budget is, as Lisa said, 200 or 5,000 or whatever it is, a good way I know to start out for some companies is to leverage some of the media company platforms. So they often have like massive investments in tech platforms. They've got a vast array of clients. They have teams of people, probably dedicated to search, native content generation, campaign optimization, like all that sort of stuff. And I'm not saying don't use somebody like, you know, Caleb or Heather or Lisa or Matt. By all means, give us a call. But when you're just getting started and budgets are tight, it's not a bad way to get a start and to help them help you learn. And it gives you an idea what works for you as well. So you're really leveraging all that they have in exchange for your advertising dollars, but it can give you a good feel starting out for what works and what doesn't. The only caution I would say is ensure that you own your own data at the end of the day if you go that route to try some stuff out.
Love it. Anyone else want to add anything before we go to the audience questions that just popped in? No? Okay. From Michelle, she says, how do we solve the mystery that is Pinterest? My demographics are moms, and Pinterest is one of my top platforms to market on. ... Once I get a budget, nice. But also it's a mystery. Any tips about Pinterest, team?
It is a mystery. I would say that, and we do this all the time, right? I think that you should, well, I shouldn't say you should. What we have done to kind of battle this a little bit is double down on being expert curators as compared to expert creators in the short term.
Ooh, I want to tweet that. Sorry.
Yeah.
I love it.
People pay for good curation, right? You go to one of your favorite museums, and you're paying admission not for the creation of things, but of the bringing together of certain things. So double down on curation as compared to content creation in the short term. That's what I would say. And go to Reddit and go to Quora and see what people are talking about, and then curate based on what they're already talking about. And I assume Pinterest is one of, I'm assuming if your demographic is moms, you are heavy in Facebook. Making an assumption there.
Yeah, the mom Facebook groups are real. I love that. Anyone else want to follow up?
Oh, I was going to add just to Caleb's bit. No, I'm not on the Facebook issue I've got is we do have a Fit Mama Facebook page for the mums, obviously, and we've got that secured. However, a lot of mums are actually, the target we're looking at are working mothers. We're looking at LinkedIn, YouTube, and Pinterest. Facebook, you can't really advertise within mums groups. So it's an absolute false economy. You can sit on a mums group all you like, and there's 2,000 mums there, and they're your target demo. You put one little sniff of a little bit of a line of, oh, my business can really help you, and you're kicked out the group. And that's you as a mum, you've lost that connection in that community. So it's a bit of a catch-22. So Facebook not on the radar, and me personally, I'm not a Zucky fan, so I really don't want to put money in his pocket. But for the sake of the business, further down the line, yeah, of course, sure. But Pinterest for me is the big mystery dog. I mean, it just seems to be the honey trap for mums, but at the same time, what are we doing on it? I've not got a clue. I pin stuff on it and things are active and I seem to get views, but beyond that, there's no sales coming through, but I don't have a clue how else to do it. But I like your curating part. That was a good shout, Caleb. Just to add, sorry.
Instead of being the one that has to pump the message, you could also find the influential moms that are on Pinterest and just celebrate them and increase their celebrity status by posting their stuff, because you can drop your overall cost per 1,000 impressions from a marketing standpoint if you have strong advocacy base. So just celebrate them and post their stuff. Could be another way of doing it. Or build a TikTok strategy and market to mom through their kids, but that's controversial. So.
That was gold what you said about content curation, Kayla. But the only thing I would say, Michelle, without knowing a ton about your business, think about when you're like grouping your boards, being really thoughtful on just simple stuff like titles, hashtags, and then where, if you're posting any of or pinning any of your own content, being really mindful about what that's linking back to. So if, and again, without knowing a ton about your business, it's kind of hard to really outline strategy, but I would, think about a landing page where you can actually capture a lead instead of just pointing it back to, a blog with that picture, because I think you'll again, back to that customer journey. What can we do to add value and in exchange maybe capture a lead out of it? When it comes to Pinterest ads as well, like I know they have a minimum from what I can remember. And so their ads, it's just not as mature of a platform when we look at like Facebook, Insta, Google, and it's a bit of Wild West over in Pinterest land in my experience still.
Yeah, I can add on that, Lisa. And Caleb's comment on curating content is a really smart idea. Where we found good success, kind of regardless of the platform, whether it be Pinterest or Facebook or whatever, is just creating compelling content that you can draw people off of those platforms. It's tough because it's a tough battle. People don't always want their social habit to be interrupted, but if you can create compelling content that you can draw them over to your own property, I mean, you've solved half the battle at that point.
I love it. Yeah, I would also say you don't have to sell on the Facebook. You could also just use the Facebook groups to grow your other audiences. So if you're doing a good job of curation, like Caleb is saying, instead of you saying like, oh, like my business does this, like, oh, I know a great Pinterest page that also does this. And then you can kind of build up the Pinterest audience. I was coaching one team that they were doing something for moms with kids with autism. And they basically just had a bunch of moms posting their links and stuff to their Pinterest and their YouTubes. And they were able to grow their YouTube and their Pinterest really high. And then they were able to do advertising on top and then bring them over to their site. So it's like a 1, 2, 3 punch versus going straight to the sale. Sometimes if you're too thirsty in marketing, you don't get anything.
And sometimes bring it back to the customer benefit. So if you're selling, I don't know, if you're selling a fry pan, because that happens to be one of our clients, we sell pots and pans for them. If you're selling a fry pan, people aren't buying a fry pan, they're buying an experience. So your content should be around a delicious looking, say your target is family. Your content should be around a beautiful photo of something being prepared and that looks simple with people, helping out, pitching in at the kitchen counter, not the product itself. So it is really about what's a benefit to the customer at the end of the day. And if your content's not really reflecting that, then you need to go back and look at it.
Nice. Great. Awesome. Well, if there's no other questions or comments about this topic, I'm going to move on to my last one since we have about 15 minutes left. Yes, keep it going in the chat, guys. But let's get to the last couple questions here. All right, the next one we have is, what are some examples of successful engagement campaigns you've used before?
I'll jump in on this one quick. So Mr. Lube, it's kind of like Jiffy Lube, but Canadian. So they had a big, huge survey that they wanted to send to their customer base. And it was like 30 questions. And so what we did is we took all 30 of the questions and gamified each single one of the questions and built like an Instagram story feed on each question individually. And so we got multiple touch points and gamification response to each of the individual questions, brought all the results together, and then sent that off to the client as sort of like a full body of work. Engagement, small bits, like quick touches, micro content, that kind of thing, play into the ADD culture of today a little bit, unfortunately. So I would go back to quizzing and gamifying survey strategies as one idea.
So I can.
Oh, sorry, Matt.
Sorry, I'm just going to jump in with a quick one that will possibly ensure that I never get invited back to one of these. But we leveraged a piece of tech, and I can't believe I'm referring to it as tech. It was at one point in time recently, and we actually ran a fax campaign. And
Faxing is tech.
It's old tech. It's old tech. I could quite honestly say it's the only time we've ever done that before, but we got an extremely positive response from it.
Who was it to? Was it like a doctor campaign?
Close. It was schools.
What's old is new again.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, some of these places that's like the best way to stand out because no one ever sends you a fax anymore.
Well,
It's
that's
almost
it.
like how direct mail is real now.
Yeah, like we kind of joked about it. You picture this, dusty old fax machine kind of rattling to life in the corner and spitting something out. But that's exactly what we did.
I'll still
Love
invite
it.
you, Matt.
I'll go back to my cookware example, I guess. We're responsible for a national brand launch of our client, Meyer Canada, but it's made in Canada Meyer cookware, which is brands less than 3 years old in Canada. And, we're trudging away, doing all the things we're supposed to do to grow a retail brand in Canada, and COVID hit. And we just went really hard at the client and used the Great Depression example of Kellogg's and how, Post did the predictable thing and tightened budgets and everything when the Depression hit, and Kellogg's went full steam ahead and took it as an opportunity to jump in and build the Snap, Crackle, Pop Rice Krispies brand. So we kind of used that angle to convince our client this was the time to go hard, big, and strong, and jump ahead and jump right up that queue in terms of brand awareness for Canadian-made cookware. We did all kinds of engagement, including we had celebrity chefs that are on the Food Channel and stuff here do cooking classes from home, and we live streamed them with wonky, quirky looking video on Facebook and everything, because all of a sudden COVID hit and less than polished was okay. Anyway, we successfully jumped the brand quite a bit. I think their sales are up something like 500% this year. Like, I could argue that we're brilliant, or I could just say that everybody's stuck cooking at home and they were going to sell a lot of cookware anyway. I'm not sure, but they went for it and it's been successful for them.
I'm going to say you're brilliant. Also, guys, do you remember when Zoom calls were fun and exciting when this all started? It's been like a year.
I love the examples you guys are sharing, and I have to admit, I've been sitting here racking my brain of like, okay, which one do I share? And so I'm going to talk more generally instead of specific campaign, because I could give you tons of examples. But I think for us, the ones that have been the most successful usually have, to Caleb's point, that gamification piece. So there's some sort of contest or incentive to become engaged or become involved. But more than that, it was the campaigns that really understood what mattered to that end audience. So I think of like the Highway Coalition we did, and some really simple things. And I know this doesn't necessarily involve tech, but we did hard hat stickers for all of like Shell's employees and staff that were going on site to Surmont too. And we made them like really over the line funny. It took a big push with their board to get them to agree. But the people on social media were snapping photos of their hard hats and sharing it on. There were some private Facebook groups that we had started for this particular contest, and people were sharing, commenting, and it just exploded. And when I compare that to many campaigns that have had a contest segment to it, it's always the ones that have been really thoughtful to, be engaging with the audience on something they're going to find emotional or funny. Those are the ones that really explode. The ones that are like, comment on our post to win a free massage, or, like and share our post to, win a gift certificate. It's just not enough anymore. It really needs to, to hit the emotion, for lack of better words. Otherwise, people just don't care. They're just going to keep on scrolling, keep on keeping on. So that's kind of my 2 cents is really looking at how do you make that connection without it just being the same old that everybody else is doing.
Yeah, and be yourselves. That makes you more interesting because you're a person. And there's people behind every brand.
And not being afraid to showcase that personality, like back to not to throw Shell under the bus, they've been great, but their board, having to really push the envelope a little bit and say, guys, you're not your target audience. So I know that there's a big group of, for lack of nice words, white men sitting around the table here, but we got to get outside our comfort zone because your audience is very diverse. What you find funny, they're not going to find funny, and vice versa. So we know, we ran a big study for this particular project, and once we got those psychographic profiling nailed down, it became really easy to develop what that funny message was going to be. And anyway, I can harp till the cows come home, but don't be afraid to, push the envelope a little bit and get creative.
Awesome. We have 5 minutes left. Julia, what should we do? One more question, or do you want to wrap it up?
I mean, completely up to you. So how about we ask the audience, would you like to stick around for another 5 minutes, or are you ready to take a break before we start the next session? Which I'm actually...
Well, Jay says he's funny. Tell us a joke, Jay. Let's go.
Yay.
Oh, Lisa's gotta go. Boo. It was nice seeing you, Lisa. Thanks so much. Oh, she has a client.
Client
Yeah.
at 2, but I can stick around for 1 or 2 more minutes.
Cool. Yeah, I had a really quick one that we can go through since the audience is not giving us their opinion. I'm going to say omni-channel or single channel. Which one's best to go live?
I was gonna say omni-channel, but then because there's no single channel left, but then I never thought of the one guy who wants to buy the fax machine. So I'm just kidding. I had a hard time. I had a hard time thinking of where you would use omni-channel, one channel these days. Sometimes I wish for that, but I had a hard time coming up with that. So I'm going to have to go with omni-channel.
Yeah, I would just say one channel when you're starting out, and then multi-channel once you're ready to scale. That's for online conversions specifically. And for offline conversions, I think you should go omni-channel and optimize your campaigns for CPM, for reach and awareness and frequency to drive customer action. So depends on online versus offline.
Anyone else?
I'm
No?
going to echo exactly what Caleb just said, is start simple and scale from there. Don't try to be all things to all people off the get-go.
Before we go, me and Matt were talking about this, just one thing on tech, because I know this was a tech session. Tech is not a silver bullet, it's a rake. You still need to go rake the lawn. So don't make the mistake that there's any tech out there that will just fix it all for you. It's the people that are using the rake.
Love it.
Yeah, and just to add to that, sometimes the leaner the solution, the leaner the tech, the less complex it is, the better.
I like it. I think that'll answer Rebecca's question, when she said, what do you recommend for someone who's just starting out? Keep it simple. Nice. And then Julia, is this recorded? Was this recorded? I think it was.
Yes.
I see the button.
Yes, it is recorded. I don't know when we'll be able to put it online, but feel free to reach out to me. I am happy to share the raw recording with you at any time. It should be available tonight.
Awesome. Great. Well, I'm going to say we're good and done here because it's right about time to start the next session. And I know Julia has to keep going. But thank you, panelists, for joining us. You were all very interesting. I'm really glad to have met you. And I found really great insights from this. And I'm sure everyone else did too.
That was
Thank
great.
you for having us, and thank you all for listening.
For these
That was
things,
great.
for moderating, that was a lot of fun. And Heather, Caleb, Lisa, Matthew, it was so great having you here. Thank you for sharing your insights. I learned a lot. I really enjoyed it. I am sure everybody in the audience did too. Otherwise, they wouldn't have stuck around for an hour. So with this, I am happy to announce that we have 2 more sessions today. We have How to Drive ROI with SEO at 4 p.m. So right in 2 minutes, and following that, we'll hear some success stories of working with a marketing agency. Yeah, so I hope you hop to the next meeting, and I will see you all there. Thank you so much.
Woo! Go digital marketing.
Yay!
Thanks, guys.
That was fun.
Thank you.
Thanks,
everyone.
Julia.
Bye-bye. Great having you all.